What if I told you that the global crisis that we're now facing, Patriot missiles flying toward the Ukraine, nuclear threats from Moscow, and talk of World War III wasn't just the fault of Vladimir Putin, but the intentional fallout of a political setup that began almost a decade ago? Well, what if the same people who lied to you about Russia, who pushed a phony dossier, and who tried to take down a sitting president are the ones who set this war in motion long before the first missile ever launched? Well, guys, this is not speculation anymore. DNI Tulsi Gabbard just handed over criminal referrals to the DOJ. Jordan and Mark Meadows, they're saying that the deep state's cover-up was worse than we thought. And now Russia isn't just threatening the West, they're responding. And it's all happening under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump, who is trying to stop the global fire that they lit. Now, in today's video, I want to go ahead and expose the secret Obama-era meetings that rigged the narrative right before President Trump was even sworn in. How the Russia hoax directly triggered today's missile launch, and why President Trump's 50-day ultimatum may be the last chance to stop this full-blown global war, guys. This is not just about politics. This is about your safety. It's about your trust. And it's about who's really pulling the strings behind the scenes then and now. So, guys, stick with me, because what's coming up next will force you to make a choice. You're going to have to choose. Do you still believe the official story, or are you finally ready to see who actually set the trap? So let's go ahead and get started. By the way, if you appreciate the daily news updates, hit the like button and subscribe. Guys, as we speak, U.S. President Donald Trump is running the show here, and U.S. Patriot missiles are being shipped to the Ukraine with the backing of Germany and NATO. And within hours of that news breaking, Russia responded with direct nuclear threats, warning the West of preemptive strikes if this continues. Now, we got to pause right there just for a second, because if you're only looking at the headlines, this might seem like, oh, it's just another chapter in a long running war. But what if this is not just about Russia and Ukraine anymore? What if this moment, this terrifying standoff that we're in right now, was engineered not by Vladimir Putin, but by the same people who pushed a fake Russia conclusion or collusion narrative back in 2016, undermined a sitting president, and manipulated the very public with false intelligence, media leaks, and all sorts of cover-ups? Because what we're seeing right now is not just war. This is the aftermath of a trap that was set years ago. And the deeper you go, the worse it gets. Now, stick with me, guys, because what Tulsi Gabbard just dropped might be the clearest evidence yet that this war was not started with a lie, and it's time for some consequences. So just a couple days ago, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, she did something that nobody in Washington had the balls to do. She released declassified documents and sent a criminal referral to the Department of Justice, accusing top officials from the Obama administration of knowingly fabricating the Trump-Russia narrative. Now, I want to go ahead and say that one more time. Criminal referral. These are not theories, okay? Or at least not anymore. These are documents, they're timelines, there's names. And here's who she's saying was involved: Barack Obama, James Clapper, John Brennan, James Comey, Susan Rice. Any of those names sound familiar? Guys, this wasn't just like political maneuvering. This was a national security operation that was weaponized against a political opponent. And it worked. Guys, they created a false narrative. They sold it to the public. They leaked it to the media, and then they used it to justify FISA warrants, DOJ investigations, and a multi-year campaign to cripple President Donald J. Trump from day one. But here's the kicker. That false narrative, that fake dossier, the surveillance, the media spin, it all cemented Russia as the permanent villain. And now, years later, the exact narrative is being used to justify war. Think about it, guys. Tulsi Gabbard, she just pulled the curtain back, and now, and what she revealed, this could unravel every excuse that the deep state had still been hiding behind, even as the missiles fly. So here's the part that I know is going to make your jaw drop, because Jordan and Mark Meadows, they're saying that it was worse than we ever thought. You ever get the feeling that your plan just isn't the right fit, but you're kind of like, you don't even know where to start? Well, that's where Chapter comes in, guys. Now, I've partnered with them because they cut through the noise and they just help. Amy Best wrote me saying, Ron, I call Chapter. Thank you so much. And Catherine Garcia, She said that she's actually got to talk to a real person, somebody caring, compassionate, and knowledgeable. Now her entire plan is paid for and she owes nothing out of pocket. Chapter is that good, guys. Give her friends a Chapter call right now. Leave a number down below. Phone number is 909-563-8279, or hit them up on their website right now at askchapter.org/Ron. I'll leave a link for you in the pinned comment. So whether you're overwhelmed or just curious, you deserve to know your best options. Do not go another day wondering. Give our friends a Chapter call right now. So I want to go back to the early days before Trump was even sworn in. Jim Jordan, he just laid out 3 dates that every American needs to know and put on their calendars, or actually kind of flip back on your calendars to see the real significance of this. December 2016, Barack Obama calls a meeting inside the White House. Okay. Everybody's there. Brannon, Clapper, Comey, and the DOJ. Okay. But instead of accepting the intelligence community's original assessment, they stopped it and they created a new one. Why? Because the original one didn't support their Trump-Russia narrative. January 3rd, 2017, Senator Chuck Schumer, he goes on national TV and he warns President-elect Trump, if you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. That wasn't a prediction. That was a threat, and it came true. January 6, 2017, Trump's first official briefing. He expects a security update, but instead they ambush him with now debunked Steele dossier. This is a document that they knew was false, and they brief him just so that they can leak to the press. Breaking news. Intel officials just warned President Trump about Russian blackmail material. Garbage? Yes. But the media ran with it and the damage was already done. Now, think about that, right? The press didn't discover anything. They were fed a setup and then they ran it like it was gospel. And that brings us to the Flynn takedown. Now, drop me a quick comment down below. Did you know the backstory about this before I shared that with you? So just weeks later, General Michael Flynn, he was like the first casualty of this whole trap. Comey, he later admitted that he broke protocol, he bypassed White House counsel, and he even sent agents to catch Flynn off guard because they thought that they could get away with it. Now, this wasn't about foreign policy. This was about control from day one, and it worked for a while. But now the architects are being exposed. So if they were willing to set up a precedent, leak lies, and ruin careers just to try to stop Trump, you got to ask yourself, what else are they willing to do? Are these same people like still influencing military decisions? At least now that the stakes are nuclear, right? So if we fast forward to today, Trump is back in office, the lies have been exposed, and yet the fingerprints of the deep state are still all over the place. I mean, remember the 51 former Intel officials who signed that letter in 2020 claiming Hunter Biden's laptop had all the classic earmarks of Russian disinformation, but they hadn't even seen the laptop. They hadn't verified a thing. And so, I mean, they lied again, just like they did in 2016, and the media ate it up. So you got to ask yourself now, are these same experts advising NATO, whispering into cameras, getting interviewed on CNN as this war escalates? Because if they were willing to lie to sway an election, well, what are they telling our foreign partners today, right? The deep state doesn't need a title or a nameplate to hold power. They operate through relationships, leaks, retired experts, and pressure on the press. And now, right now, their disinformation is costing lives. And here's where it gets even more dangerous, okay? President Trump didn't sit still. He didn't take the bait. He gave Putin a 50-day ultimatum, and that moment, that move, that might be the final line between war and peace. So President Trump didn't stumble into this crisis. He confronted it head on. Just a few weeks ago, he issued a very bold, clear ultimatum to Vladimir Putin. 50 days. Count them, 50. That is how long Russia had to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine or face massive consequences. Delivery of advanced U.S. Patriot missiles to Ukraine via NATO. And a devastating 100% secondary tariff on every country that's buying Russian oil, China, India, Brazil, the lifelines of Putin's war machine. I apologize, guys. Still trying to get over this little thing. Guys, that's not warmongering. That's economic warfare with strategic intent, a Trump specialty. But Putin didn't blink. And now, here we are in July. These missiles, they're in transit. Patriot batteries, precision American technology, they're being deployed to Ukraine to protect their skies. And how did Russia respond to that? With nuclear threats. Let that sink in, guys. Trump tried to force peace through pressure, and Putin answered with a threat to the world. So here's the kicker. The media is already spinning this like Trump is provoking World War III. But where were they when Biden was funding both sides of this war, handing out billions of dollars with no plan, no exit, and zero accountability, right? Like, was this war avoidable if the deep state hadn't sabotaged Trump's first term? Or was it inevitable because they needed chaos to justify their grip on power? So let's talk about the strike that's coming, or maybe even already in motion. The Kremlin didn't just issue one warning. They issued several. I mean, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev called for preemptive strikes on the West. Putin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia's nuclear doctrine remains in effect, meaning if they feel threatened, they'll act. And what's their justification? Well, they claim that U.S. supports. They claim that the U.S. support for Ukraine under President Trump's leadership, it's a joint attack by a nuclear power. That's what they're saying. In other words, because Ukraine is now armed with U.S. missiles, Russia believes that it has the right to be able to respond as if the United States attacked them directly. You see what I'm saying here, guys? So, but here's a deeper truth that they will not say out loud. Russia waited for this moment, not because of Trump, but because of the weakness and the chaos that was left behind by the previous administration. Had Trump not returned to office, the deep state would have let this spiral out of control without resistance. But now that Trump is using hard pressure and cutting off their lifelines, Russia is escalating because they know the free ride is over. And that raises the hardest question of all. Would Russia even be acting this boldly if Trump had never been sabotaged from the start? Or are we watching the final explosion of a slow burning fuse lit by the same people who once told us that the Steele dossier was real, right? Well, let's talk facts here, because under Joe Biden, the U.S. spent hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars funding a war with no timeline, no measurable success, and no exit plan. And this is why so many people were mad about Biden sending all this money over to the Ukraine. And what did the American people get in return? Open borders, soaring inflation, and zero accountability. But now, under President Donald J. Trump, everything has changed. Trump didn't just flip the script, he shredded it. Instead of asking you to fund this conflict, Trump has forced NATO to step up and pay for the weapons themselves. That includes the 5 Patriot missile systems now en route to the Ukraine. They're being paid for by Europe, not the American people. Trump's message was simple. We'll help defend freedom, but we're done footing the bill for your wars. And so now the result is American strength remains intact. The military industrial complex is on a leash, and U.S. resources are protected for people, not for the global elite. So why didn't Biden just do this himself? Why were we bleeding money while European allies sat on their hands? Because under Trump, it's America first, not America last. So here's where it all comes together, guys. Trump has forced the global community into a corner, a moment of truth. They now have a choice: surrender to Putin's nuclear intimidation, or stand with America, stand with strength, leverage, and peace through power. And let's not forget something that's rather critical. The very people who are panicking about Trump's moves right now, they're the same people who pushed the Russia collusion hoax, leaked the phony dossier, set up General Flynn, lied about Hunter Biden's laptop, and called every truth a conspiracy right up until it exploded in their face. These people don't want peace. They want chaos. They want control. But Trump wants something different. Trump wants a world where peace is not bought with weakness, a future where America's enemies fear us, not laugh at us, and a country where you, the American citizen, are finally put first again. So here's the bottom line. The war that we're facing today is not just about Russia or the Ukraine. It's really the result of this multi-year trap that was engineered by the deep state, triggered by lies, and escalated by cowards who never even expected Donald J. Trump to fight back. But he did. And now he's exposing all of them with strategy, strength, unshakable loyalty to the American people. So the question isn't, will there be peace or war? The real question is, do you stand with the man trying to stop global collapse or with the people who lied to us into the fire, right? Well, drop your answer in the comments down below, guys. Peace or war? Truth or corruption? Trump or the trap? Oh, and don't forget, YouTube thinks you're going to love this video that's about to pop up on your screen right now. Click it right now. It connects directly to everything that we've just exposed, because once you see how deep this trap goes, you're never going to look at world events the same way again. We'll see you next time.